Good morning, greetings, friends, and welcome to The Bright Side, your nutritional program dedicated to the understanding of the vast world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. I'm your host, Pharmacist Ben, nutritional pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado. I specialize in using nutritional supplements where other healthcare practitioners use toxic pharmaceutical drugs and sometimes deadly medical procedures. If you suspect that there are natural nutritional roads to your vitality and health and well-being, and to addressing your health challenges, whatever they may be, but you don't know where to begin, you have come to the right place. As you listen to The Bright Side every day, you are more and more in control of your body. You are more and more knowledgeable, and you know you can overcome any health issue. That's why we're here every day on The Bright Side, helping clear up the sometimes confusing world of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. Over the last 29 years of practicing pharmacy, I've seen drug-free recoveries from diabetes, hypertension, obesity, skin diseases, psoriasis, eczema, rosacea, acne, digestive ailments of all kinds, recoveries that by the standards of modern medicine can only be called a miracle, but what is in the world of the body, what is in the world of biology, standard operating procedure. Because the human biological system is a healing system. It's a regenerating system. It's a renewing system. And it's designed divinely to heal, renew, regenerate itself on a moment-to-moment basis. While some folks may call that a miracle, it really is just the way the body works. If you have questions about prescription drugs, health challenges you or a loved one may be dealing with, the longevity products, formulations, if you want to get off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, we want to hear from you. 844-236-6010 is our number. Likewise, if you want to comment or if you have a success story you'd like to share, 844-236-6010 is our number today on The Bright Side and every day on The Bright Side. If you want to purchase any of the longevity products you hear advertised in the program, head over to brightsideben.com. You can order products right off the website. You can also go to my blog, pharmacistben.com and criticalhealthnews.com. Thank you to Jonty Collier and Robert Lundgren for setting those up. You can also sign up to join the Brightside Ben team right off the website, or you can call the phone team, 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470. You can also check out my Truth Treatments page, truthtreatments.com. That's my skincare blog. You can also head over to my Facebook page, The Truth with Ben. I post regularly on skincare subjects on both The Truth with Ben, that's the Facebook page, and truthtreatments.com. And you can also purchase skin health products off of truthtreatments.com. Take a look at our retinol 5% gel. Retinol 5% gel made with 5% vitamin A in its retinol form. Vitamin A is one of the big three ingredients. I call them the big three ingredients you need for your skin. Vitamin A, vitamin C, alpha hydroxy acids. The rest is baloney. Quote me. The rest is baloney. Some of it is actually toxic baloney. Some of it is inert baloney. Some of it is in vitro, in a test tube. It works in a test tube. That doesn't mean it's going to work on your skin. Vitamin A, vitamin C, alpha hydroxy acids, and that's it. And you know what? Vitamin A and vitamin C and alpha hydroxy acids, when used correctly, have something very interesting in common. They all have a degree of fat solubility. Now, alpha hydroxy acids, not so much, although some do, but certainly vitamin A does, and when vitamin C is used correctly, or when it's used in its correct form, it's going to be fat soluble. And understanding this distinction is one of the fundamental understandings of all of health and nutrition. And I know I got a little chemistry. I went a little chemistry on you guys yesterday, and I'll do a little bit today. But it's really important. It's not that complicated, really. But it's important because if we don't understand some of the basics about chemistry, we are going to be just grist for the corporatocracy mill, the pharmacracy mill. That is the world of pharmacy and money and bottom lines and corporations and formularies and HMOs and none of which has anything to do with our health, but has to do with enrichment and capitalism and making money. And not that there's anything wrong with those ideas, but when they're depending on our ignorance and utilizing or taking advantage of our ill health in order to be enriched, in order to be bottom line oriented, that's just not fair and that's not right. And so it depends, it's up to us to understand some of the very, very basics about chemistry. And one of the most basic ideas in all of chemistry is this idea of water soluble versus fat soluble. In the world of the skin, you got to have fat solubility if you have an active material. In the world of the body, there's understanding this distinction between fats and water, or fats and non-fats, if you will, is also important. we've been talking about the fatty hormones now for a couple of months probably. The steroid hormones, these are completely separate class of chemicals than the water-soluble hormones, peptide hormones, thyroid hormone, insulin. Those are water-soluble hormones. And how you operate and how you work with the insulin and how you work with thyroid hormone is different from how you work with your steroid hormones. Your steroid hormones, you got to be processing your fat. 100 million Americans have liver disease, but it's not just liver disease, it's fatty liver disease. That means it's a fat problem. This is what it means when healthcare professionals like myself who talk about these alternative ideas in health say things like, my people perish for lack of knowledge, which comes from the Bible. My people perish for lack of knowledge. By not understanding how fatty liver disease is related to our menopausal symptoms, or how fatty liver disease is related to our lymphatic cancers, our breast cancer, or how fatty liver disease is related to our prostate, we don't address the causes of our problems. You can't address the prostate or breasts or any fatty system in the body unless you address the liver first. And if 100 million Americans have liver disease, that's not happening, clearly. Also, the liver is a digestive organ. It's a lot of things, but one of its main roles is a digestive organ. The liver is how the digestive system impacts the rest of the body. It's like the bridge between the digestive tract and the rest of the body. The liver processes sugar, so this is where the second point on the triangle of disease is. And the liver's fatty, and the liver processes fats. And liver disease is fatty liver disease. So understanding this distinction between fatty stuff and watery stuff, hydrophilic, lipophilic, is really, really important. It's not just, scientific stuff just to be scientific. What makes something a fat in the world of chemistry, what makes something fat soluble or oil soluble is electricity, pieces of electricity. We call them electrons, which I hesitate to say because it sounds so technical, but it's just little chunks of electricity, little pieces of electricity. That's all they are, electrons. What makes something a fat is the electrons are distributed evenly. What makes something a non-fat is the electrons are pulled to one side. Some people say polar, non-polar. Fatty substances, because the stuff is distributed evenly, is not pulled. It's non-polar. In the world of nutrition, this polar and non-polar idea is incredibly important to take into account. That's because non-polar substances, i.e. fatty substances with their electrical energy evenly distributed, have more attachments, so they're sticky and they're harder to extract. They're much harder to get out of foods. Water-soluble nutrients, this is why the Beyond Tangy Tangerine is so cool. It's water-soluble. Boom, right to work. The fatty stuff, not so much. Fatties for long-term. Your fatty vitamins, your fatty hormones, phytonutrients, these are more long-term kinds of things because they're sticky, they're hard to get out of foods, they're hard to process in the body. The fact that they're hard to get out of foods has a tremendous implication when it comes to aging as we get older, because as we get older, we don't extract our fats effectively, and this especially will show up in one of the most important fatty systems in the body, which is the skin. I can always tell when somebody's either not getting or not absorbing their fats by looking at their skin. The skin will be thinning. Thinning skin is a classic sign. Crepey skin, some people will call it, is a classic sign of either fat malabsorption or not getting enough fats. So understanding how to pull those fats out is really, really important. Some of the most important fats for anti-aging are pigments, as we said yesterday. That's why you always want to cook your Brussels sprouts and broccoli and tomatoes. If you're going to cook your tomatoes, you always want to use a little tiny bit of heat and a little tiny bit of butter or coconut oil to pull those fatty nutrients out of the broccoli and out of the Brussels sprouts, so they can go to your skin to prevent you from getting sunburn or photo damage or accelerated aging or hyperpigmentation or wrinkles, so they can go to your liver to protect your liver from fatty liver disease, to protect your liver and the rest of your body from lymphatic disease and cancer. It's understanding how to pull those fats out of the Brussels sprouts and the vegetables can be really helpful as an anti-aging and as a beautification nutritional strategy. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. We're back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got lines open for you, 844-236-6010. If we don't get calls here in our next segment, or in our second or third segment, third or fourth segment, we'll take letters. I got a whole bunch of good letters here that I've been meaning to get to. 844-236-6010 is our number if you want to give us a shout today, if you have a success story you'd like to share or contribute to the conversation, or if you have questions or concerns, health challenges, if you want to wean yourself off your meds, we can help you do that. 844-236-6010 is our number. And if you want to purchase any of the longevity products you hear advertised or recommended, you can call the Brightside Ben phone team at 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470. All right, so we're talking about this whole idea of fats, solubility, fat-soluble, water-soluble. Flavor, by the way, tends to be fatty. Flavor substances tend to be fatty. Sweet substances tend to be watery. This is really important for cooks, for chefs. If you're baking, if you mix a little oil with chocolate, for example, it makes the chocolate more chocolatey. The combination of sugar and chocolate and fat is pretty darn irresistible, and that's because all of the flavoring agents, the cocoa flavoring agents, come out in butter or come out in the fat. That's what chocolate is. Chocolate is kind of a blend of fat and cocoa and sugar. And it's not so much the cocoa that we like, it's the fat and the cocoa and the sugar. The fat has an ability to amplify flavors. Always mix a little bit of fat with your spices. If you're making your bone soup, take your spices and put them on the bottom of your pan when you start off, and then kind of braise them or heat them a little bit in butter. And that will release the flavoring agents out of the spices and make your soup much more spicy, or more flavorful, I should say. And we eat for flavor. That means we'll eat a lot less if we have more flavor. Increasing your flavor will allow you to decrease your calories without feeling restricted. So always mixing your flavorful food, your flavorful foodstuffs or spicy foodstuffs with a little bit of butter. Again, understanding the nature of water-soluble versus fat-soluble allows you to be intuitive this way. This is what a good chemist is about. That's why a good chemist or somebody who understands chemistry can work with herbs, can work with drugs, can work with food, can work with skincare, can work with pretty much any chemistry, because if you understand these basic ideas about fat-soluble, for example, and water-soluble. So understanding fatty, if you understand the nature of fat-soluble, you'll be able to exploit the nutritional value of broccoli and Brussels sprouts and tomatoes and eggplant and all your veggies. And you'll be able to leverage the flavors in these foods as well. You'll be able to improve your eating experience. Understanding the fat-soluble nature of chemistry, of everything really, and the water-soluble nature of chemistry will allow you to take care of your mouth, oral health. There's something called oil pulling. Anybody hear oil pulling? It's very effective. I've heard people say that it doesn't work, but those are people that don't understand chemistry, because it is based in chemistry. Fatty substances have a different chemistry nature than watery substances, and when you use oil pulling techniques, you'll get rid of the fatty chemicals in the mouth. And those fatty chemicals, as it turns out, cause cavities. It's not the water chemicals that cause cavities. In your mouth, you have water-soluble stuff and fat-soluble stuff, just like in anywhere else. And the water-soluble material, that's not the problem, because saliva takes care of that. You spit that out. It's the fat-soluble stuff that's a problem when it comes to cavities. And, by the way, when it comes to gum disease. Gum disease is another big problem. According to a study published in the Journal of Dental Research, the official publication of the ADA, the American Dental Association, 1 out of every 2 Americans, 50% of us, over the age of 30 has gum disease. 50% of us. That's ridiculous. That is 160 million people have gum disease. And you can't tell me that we have that many people not brushing our teeth. We're all brushing our teeth. Most people brush their teeth, but still, 1 out of 2 of us have gum disease. Why is that? Well, it's because the bacteria are making fat-soluble stuff that doesn't come out when you brush your teeth, because like dissolves like. And toothpaste, although it does have soap in it, or that's what causes the foam, and that's the logic. It only goes so far. You need to have non-polar or fatty to dissolve fatty, and that's where oil pulling comes in. Oil pulling is simply, it's I don't know why they call it oil pulling. Basically, it's just oil gargling, just rinsing your mouth with oil. And it's been used for centuries, probably for thousands of years. In India, they used to use sesame oil, and it's part of Ayurvedic medicine. Ayurvedic practitioners will talk about using sesame, brushing your tongue with sesame oil, or gargling with sesame oil. I do it with coconut oil. I first heard about it by a guy named Dr. Bruce Fife, who wrote a book called, which I have right here, the oil pulling therapy, and he talks about it. You just kind of take some coconut oil. Bruce Fife talks about using coconut oil. That's what I use, and I love the taste of coconut oil. You just take a spoon of coconut oil and put it in your mouth, and it feels kind of interesting. It's got a nice texture to it, and it's got a really nice taste, and it does a couple really interesting things. You just put it in your mouth. Basically, you let the oil melt in your mouth, and you just swish it around. Swish it under your gums, around your gums, between your teeth, and just swish it around. And there's some really neat things that happen. First of all, coconut oil is actually a kind of, sort of water-soluble oil. It's not really water-soluble, but it has a slightly water-soluble nature. That's the MCTs that we're always talking about. Medium chain triglycerides. MCTs are like a cross between a nonpolar and a polar substance. They're sort of a polar, a watery oil. And that makes MCTs unbelievably helpful. And by the way, coconut oil has a lot of these kind of crossovers, nonpolar/polar things. And that makes coconut oil really, really interesting in the world of oils. And that's why I consider it to be a safe oil. One of the reasons, anyway, I consider it to be a safer oil or an important oil. Because you get these MCTs and things like these MCTs that are sort of polar, sort of nonpolar. That's very valuable. Think about it. You got stuff that's polar, that's fatty, okay? That's important. You got stuff that's nonpolar, and that has its own importance as well. But the stuff that's a crossover in the middle, that's like having an interpreter that can talk two languages. That's like being bilingual. That makes you very valuable in the world of business, for example. If you can speak Chinese and you can speak English, you can bring Chinese people and English people together. You speak Spanish and you speak English, you could bring Spanish people and English people together. Well, in the world of chemistry, these kinds of substances that speak English and speak Chinese or speak English and speak Spanish are very valuable. Like in the world of business, interpreters are very valuable. They bring things together. And MCTs can bring things together, and substances in coconut oil can bring things together. That's why substances from coconut oil are very valuable for cleaning, for detergents. Sodium lauryl sulfate, the famous sodium lauryl sulfate, is partially derived from coconut oil, although these days probably different things, but originally it was partially derived from coconut oil. Coconut oil itself makes a great cleanser. People want to know what they can cleanse their makeup, get rid of their makeup with, or cleanse their face with. I always recommend coconut oil because coconut oil has some of these polar/nonpolar interpreter chemicals that allows them to kind of bridge two things together. Anyway, oil pulling is pretty simple stuff. If you use coconut oil, you'll get a little bit of the water-soluble cleansing effect, but you'll get a lot of the fat-soluble cleansing effect, and that'll give you 3 different benefits. And that's coconut. Well, it's pretty much any oil will do. Coconut oil is just so darn tasty. And anyway, we'll talk about this when we come back from our break. And take your phone calls. 844-236-6010 is our number. Got some lines open for you. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. On the bright side, I'm pharmacist Ben. We do have lines open for you at 844-236-6010. If you're on hold, hang tight. We'll get to you just a moment. If you're interested in purchasing any of the longevity products, please head over to brightsideben.com or pharmacistben.com or criticalhealthnews.com. You can order products right off the website, or you can join the Brightside Ben team right off the websites as well. Or you can call the phone team 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470. And if you're interested in purchasing any of our Truth Treatment products, including our retinol 5% gel, go to truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. Okay, so we're talking oil pulling. Just a couple more things I want to say about oil pulling. It's so easy. There's not much to say. You just put it in your mouth and swish it around. 10 to 20 minutes a day. You can do it in 2 10-minute sections. It sounds like a long time. It's not really a long time. Just go around, do your business, swishing the oil in your mouth, reading, writing, arithmetic, whatever you're doing. Don't swallow the oil because it's full of bacteria and it's full of bacterial secretions. So you definitely don't want to swallow the oil. Swish it around for 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you want to do, 20 minutes, and then spit it out. And the first time you do it, you're going to notice some stuff. First of all, even if this is the coolest thing, even if you brushed your teeth and flossed your teeth before you did your oil pulling, you're going to find that you're spitting out little particles of food, especially if you just ate. And what that's showing you is if you did an oil pull, those are little particles of food that will be rotting inside your mouth, literally. Even if you brushed and flossed your teeth, stuff is going to come out when you oil pull that would, under ordinary circumstances, be sitting in your mouth. This is one of the reasons why 50% of Americans have gum disease and why we all have cavities, even though most of us brush our teeth. If these little particles stayed in your mouth, they would be ideal bacterial food. They would have got trapped in the bacterial secretions, they call it biofilms. And over time, it would be impossible not to have gum disease or not to have cavities. By oil pulling, you're going to be eliminating these particles, these bacterial foods, and that means less cavities and less gum disease. Second thing you're going to notice after you oil pull is that your breath is clean and fresh. And I'm not talking minty fresh, like Listerine fresh or mouthwash clean and fresh, which is basically flavoring agents, peppermint or maybe some oils, fake fresh. You're going to notice a clean, fresh feeling. Not a taste, really, because there's no taste. It's just that you're clean, which is how it's supposed to feel inside your mouth. And then the third thing you're going to notice, and this is over time, you're going to notice that your teeth are getting whiter because the stuff that stains teeth, the pigments, are fatty. Pigments are always fatty, and pigments are always sticky. The same sticky nature that pigments have that keeps them from coming out of our broccoli and Brussels sprouts when we're cooking or when we're eating. That's why you want to cook a little bit or heat them a little bit with oil. That oil-soluble coconut oil or whatever your non-polar stuff you're using, sesame oil or whatever, is going to pull those pigments off your teeth. The pigments from coffee and from Coke, even cigarette smoke pigments, which can brown your teeth. So your teeth are going to get whiter. Now, it does take a couple of weeks to first start to notice it, but within a year or two of doing your a daily oil-pulling ritual, you're going to notice some significant teeth whitening. That's a lot of benefits. You're going to have nice, clean breath. You're going to be getting rid of food particles that would be bacterial food, and you're going to be getting teeth whitening, and it's completely non-toxic. It's completely gentle. It seems silly not to be doing oil pulling on a regular basis, in my opinion. All right. Tomorrow we'll continue talking a little bit more about polar chemistry, about non-polar chemistry, fatty chemistry, but then I want to get into watery stuff, too. Watery stuff is also important. Perhaps not in the same way as the oil-soluble chemicals, fatty hormones and such, pigments and fatty vitamins and essential fatty acids and phytosteroids, but there's a really interesting, not only are water-soluble nutrients important to understand too, but there's a really interesting interaction between oil-soluble and water-soluble, and we'll talk about that tomorrow as we continue talking fatty hormones and the skin on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. Let's go to Florida and welcome Grace to the bright side. What's up, Grace?
Good morning.
Hey,
Pharmacist
what's going
Ben.
on? How you doing?
I'm fine. How you doing?
I think I recognize your voice. We have talked before.
Yes, we've spoken before.
Yes.
I've called you before. Yes.
What's going on?
Well, two questions. One is real quick. Coconut oil, if you put it on your skin, does that stop your body from producing its own moisture factors?
Grace, you sound like a sharp cookie. You've been listening to the bright side. You're an esthetician, though? Are you? No, you're not.
No.
You just know some stuff. Well, that's a question that tells me that you know what you're thinking good. You're thinking good there, because we said so many times that when you seal up the skin, you suppress your own moisture factors, right? Now, coconut oil is a very interesting substance in the world of oils because it's got a sort of watery nature to it. It's a cross, and not exactly a cross, but it's not cut and dry whether sometimes it's not cut and dry whether something's water soluble or fat soluble. Sometimes they're kind of in between, and it's coconut oil is such a tweener. It's in between. So it's not as significant a suppressant as, say, wax would be, which is like an ultimate in terms of fat solubility. But it's not necessarily in your interest to do it. Now, coconut oil can have a softening effect on the surface of the skin. Coconut oil also has vitamin E in it. and probably other phytonutrients in it as well that can protect your skin. And because it's kind of a cross between fatty and watery, it penetrates a little bit. So as far as oils go in the world of oils, coconut oil is probably the way to go if you're going to go topical, but it's not really the same as vitamin C, for example, or retinol. If you don't want to use vitamin C or retinol and you want just something that's kind of going to soften the skin a little bit and not be bad for you, not be toxic, go organic coconut oil, absolutely. But it's not, you're not going to really create skin changes as much as you'll create some perceptual, superficial kinds of, create superficial effects. No permanent effects, but you will get some nice superficial effects, and it's non-toxic, and especially if you go organic, you're not going to have any really negative effects, and the vitamin E and the MCTs will also give you a little bit of benefit. Does that answer your question? That's kind of a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no,
okay.
That's a good answer. Thank you. But my second question is type 1 diabetes.
Okay.
How do you help reverse that? Can you?
Yeah, of course you can.
Is a ketogenic
Absolutely.
diet good for that?
A ketogenic diet is good for everybody. The ketogenic diet is basically a coconut oil diet or a fat diet, and it's really good for everybody. In fact, that's the diet that I talk about on this program all the time. Not a paleo diet. Paleo is just marketing jargon. I don't even use that word paleo. That's a stupid word. But ketogenic, that's science, and that's some really there's some really good science behind the ketogenic diet. A ketogenic diet is a low carbohydrate, high fat, they say moderate, I'll say high protein diet. So you want to focus on protein and fats, and then you end up creating these things called ketones, which the brain and the heart in particular can use. So you can get energized without having to deal with all of the burdens of sugar. And that's the benefits of the ketogenic diet. Yes, ma'am, for type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, everybody, ketogenic diet. But here's the thing with type 1 diabetes, right? Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease. I'm telling you this, you guys, I know I say it all the time, but I want to be clear and definitive because there's so many different ones. Autoimmune disease. What is that weird sound there? Autoimmune disease is a digestive condition, period. Now, it can tumble out of control and affect other systems of the body, but it starts off with stuff getting into the blood. All disease is cell disease. All cell disease is cell membrane disease, and all cell membrane disease is dirty blood disease. And it's this dirty blood that is initiated via stuff that's getting into it through the digestive tract that causes all immune and inflammatory problems. Okay, we are back on the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. We're talking to Grace. We still have Grace on the line here?
Yes. Okay,
so real quick, we're going to get to a bunch of calls here, Grace. Anytime you have an immune problem, you have a digestive problem. I don't know how much more clear I could be. We have 50 million Americans with autoimmune diseases, and these are basically lifestyle problems. And the misery behind MS and type 1 diabetes and myasthenia gravis and all of the different ways that we can have autoimmune problems, it is unspeakable. And it's so tragic and so unnecessary. Simply by fasting, you can go a long way towards resolving the symptomology. Yeah, obviously you have to eat again, but then just controlling how you eat and making sure you're processing your foods correctly. The microbiome, gut bacteria, control the immune system in large measure. It's our protection. Not only that, but once you get breaks in the digestive tract and stuff starts to leak into the blood, this is where everything begins. Everything's dirty blood. The Bible says the blood is the life for good reason. The blood contacts everything. Once something is into the blood, you cannot help but be eventually off to the disease races. I'm sorry, Grace, go ahead.
The person that was teaching my brother how to inject his daughter, she's 12 years old, I was asking her about the ketogenic diet. She says no, because if she has ketones, that could cause her to go into...
She's not going to have ketones. Her body will make ketones, and she will not go into ketoacidosis. That's not true.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, exactly. So then ask her, how about digestive enzymes? Will that help?
Absolutely. Are you asking me?
No, I'm asking you because I hear you every day, and I'm like, this is
everything.
Has to work.
In fact, all she has to do is a food diary. Tell her to do a food diary.
Yes, I told her to do that.
That's it.
Start doing that.
Let her notice herself. This is why a food diary is so important. And for you guys doing longevity, if you're in the business, or even if you just want to help people, you always want your patient or the person you're helping to be engaged in their own healing. You follow me, Grace? You don't want to be the savior on the white horse that's coming in and saving the day. That's a thankless job, and you're going to get blamed. You want your client to be engaged, so they see their participation or their complicity in their symptoms. And I don't mean that to blame the victim, and I know maybe it's not even PC to say that, but we want to, if we're truly interested in healing, and don't underestimate how not interested in healing many people are, but if we're truly interested in healing, then seeing our complicity and respecting our participation in our diseases, our participation in our symptoms, is in our interest. Powerful people who want to make changes in their lives, people who want to improve their lives, are always looking to see what are they doing to cause whatever's showing up. Does that make sense, Grace? And this is true about everything in life, not just our health, our money situation, our love and relationship situations, just the way our life shows up. If you're a powerful person and you're really interested in making a difference in your life and changing your life, you're going to really want to see, how am I at cause in the crappy stuff? And that's not PC, you can't blame the victim, but I'm just talking about strictly if you want to make a difference in your life. Have her do a food diary. Have her notice the response of her body to specific foods. Guaranteed, she's going to notice that certain foods cause loose stools, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, gas. Those are foods that need to be eliminated. Get her on the Biolumin Nightly Essence, 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 3 at night. Have her use digestive enzymes, the ultimate enzymes, with all of her meals. And then the food diary where she's eliminating problem foods, and she should notice results pretty darn quickly. Now, obviously, diabetes is a sugar problem, so she's going to have to watch out for her sugar as well. Limiting the amount of carbs is super important, and that includes fruit and fruit juices, certainly desserts and breads and pasta, etc. But some people think fruits are somehow benign. They're not, especially for the liver, especially for type 1 diabetes. So limiting them. And then using the sweeties and B vitamins. Tomorrow we'll talk about how the polar nutrients, the water-soluble stuff, is really important for sugar control, and we'll be doing that tomorrow on The Bright Side. I got to move on, Grace. Thank you so much for your call.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Have a beautiful day. All right, Janice in Texas, what's going on? Welcome to The Bright Side.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on?
I just have a lovely friend that is in the middle of working, so she can't listen to you, unfortunately.
Okay.
She has a son, and she was telling me that he had spent the whole night with a migraine, and she had given him like 12 aspirin-like stuff.
That's not going to touch it.
That
doesn't touch it. No.
And I said, you know what? It may be a mineral deficiency. Let me check it. I thought of dead doctors, and I totally forgot to recommend you, and I was going to tell her that...
Forgot about me. Now, how do you think that makes me feel about myself, Janice?
Hey, I didn't forget today, and that was just yesterday.
I'm teasing you.
Sometimes
all right, here's the deal.
Memory lapses.
No worries, Janice. Here's the deal. Migraine headaches are a circulatory problem. They're a blood vessel problem. The blood flows through the brain, obviously, but when you have a migraine headache, and I'll tell you why this happens, but when you have a migraine headache, the blood vessels open and close inappropriately. The reason they open and close inappropriately is because something is getting into the blood, dirty blood. That's what we were just talking about. Everything boils down to the same problem, dirty blood. So in the case of migraines, you're looking at food allergens, and it can also have to do with fatty hormones, sometimes specifically estrogen. When estrogen changes, when it fluctuates, it can cause the blood vessels to open up and close inappropriately. When you get allergens into the body, the same thing can happen. These are the two major reasons why people have migraines. If they're related to a menstrual cycle, or if they're in a woman, you want to think maybe estrogen's involved.
It's a boy.
For this young boy, I would say almost guaranteed it's a food issue. Okay? How do you know? Well, you look for foods, and you look for food problems. You look for triggers. Again, food diary, look for digestive symptoms and backtrack them to specific foods. You follow me? Look for a history of food allergies, all of those. Nobody just has a migraine. A migraine is a secondary symptom. You got to look for the primary cause, and it's going to be something getting into the blood, again, estrogen or food allergen. Now, there are some minerals that are involved that can help, specifically one mineral called magnesium. And magnesium has actually been used as a treatment. Why? Because magnesium opens up the blood vessels. When you have a migraine, you've got blood vessels that open up real fast and then close. And so the direct cause of a migraine headache is the blood vessels closing. And so relaxing the blood vessels is very helpful, and that is one of the roles of magnesium. So you can use 2,000 milligrams of magnesium a day just to keep the migraine away, or you can use magnesium to treat the migraine, although it does take a while for the magnesium to get into the blood. If you want a fast way to vasodilate, that means open up the blood vessels. If you have a migraine, what's the fastest way to open up the blood vessels? Deep breathe, slow, deep breathing. If you guys are out there listening and you think, well, it sounds like it might be a good idea to have my blood vessels open up to improve the flow of blood, to improve nutrient delivery, if I have a migraine headache, to improve detoxification, well, I'm going to tell you the fastest, quickest, easiest way to open up your blood vessels. And it's not to take an antihypertensive drug that poisons your blood vessels, forces them to open up. It's just to sit on the couch and practice slow, deep breathing. Now, if you have a migraine headache, you may not feel like doing that, but if you do it on a regular basis, you may never even get the migraine headache. So magnesium, the B vitamins also can be helpful. That's the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Sipping on it all day long. If he does have a migraine, it may help him to sip on it while he has the migraine if he feels like doing that. And then slow, deep breathing and eliminating food allergens, doing a food diary. You can also think about supporting gut health, the health of the intestine with the Biolumin Nightly Essence, with the Fucoid Z, with the Ultimate Enzymes, by using some apple cider vinegar, and also perhaps even the glucogel caps, although that's more for building the intestinal lining long term. Okay? Did that help you, Janice?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should
Yes.
I have her do yogurt, good yogurt, Pro-Raw?
No.
That's something
No.
available?
It's hard to find quality yogurt, and then he may have to deal with dairy. You can try yogurt, but I would be thinking more like big-time probiotics, the Nightly Essence. But if you want to do fermented foods, go sauerkraut.
Oh.
Okay? Or make your own fermented vegetables with some bacterial starter. I want to get my last call in here, my dear. Have a beautiful day. Thanks for calling. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Denise in Wyoming, or in New York, not Wyoming. What's going on, Denise?
Oh, hey.
Hey.
Listen to you every day.
Awesome.
At least I try to while I'm at work. Scribble
Okay.
down your notes. I got a couple questions because I was listening to you on Monday, and you were talking about bile salts and bile acid and the gallbladder, and
Right.
it made me think of my sister who unfortunately had to have her gallbladder removed.
Okay.
And then she was getting too much bile drip, which was causing loose stools and everything. And her doctor gave her cholestyramine.
Okay,
powder,
cholestyramine. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
which works, but I'm afraid it's just going to cause one thing after another.
It's a
after
resin.
Another.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Cat in the Hat book. Remember when the Cat in the Hat and he tried to get rid of the stain and got a bigger stain?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how the medicine works. Yeah, cholestyramine, as far as medicines go, it's not as toxic as a lot of other ones. They call it a sequestrant. It kind of ties up bile for excess bile. We're out of time. I want to talk to you some more. In the meantime, she needs bile. Okay, sequestering bile is not in her interest just because they goofed off. They messed up her body with the surgery. Now she's got the drip. But can you call back tomorrow so we can talk about that?
Yeah.
It's an important subject. If you can call back tomorrow, we'll address cholestyramine and bile as we continue talking fats and fatty vitamins and the skin and hormone health on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for listening. Have an awesome, wonderful, beautiful day. We'll talk to you all later. Bye for now.